I'm getting all my videos in now because I won't be back for a few days. So, hello everyone. Um, I come back because to make another delightful video for your entertainment pleasures. All right, so we have Christy. Forget all the stuff in the background of my apartment. Thank you. And he's been going and making the circuits and lying. You know, let me turn it so you can see it. Let's see. I didn't wash my dishes yet. Forget that. Christy's been lying. And one of the things about one of the things that's good about the lies that he's telling is that he's highlighting something else that I have been saying. Put it on an even keel. Put my two laptops face to face. All right. This is the bigger laptop. This is my smaller laptop. Okay, Christy's been making the rounds, and he's been lying. He's buddies with Donald Trump, first of all, and him and Trump are tied at the hips, and he's going around and he's making the statement that I'm about to play about how. Well, I'll let you hear it. But what I want you to listen to, because I'm going to play another video by Ari Melber. And he's saying that Donald Trump, the charges by Fannie Williams in Georgia, he didn't need to be charged twice. So please pay attention to what he's saying. He's nothing but a liar. Him and Donald Trump are friends. And he's running, he's saying this, because him and Donald Trump are friends, and he's trying to run cover. If it is the case that he didn't need to be charged with the crimes that Prosecutor Fannie Williams charged him with, why, when I play the other video, hasn't Jack Smith charged him with these crimes? If it is the case that Donald Trump was charged allegedly with the crimes in the federal case, then why didn't Jack Smith charge the co-conspirators? Listen to the bullshit that he's saying to try and cover for and look at his face. Why would you believe somebody with a face like this? First of all, he was involved in a man being murdered, losing his life. 2 of his staff went to prison because this fat motherfucking Krispy Kreme stuffed to the gills with bullshit cream, liar, career politician. See, he's just like Donald Trump. He's trying to get back in at all costs. And once he gets back in, and once he becomes president, this is why he's saying it's excessive. Is this, is that. It doesn't need to be in state court because he can't get rid of anything in the state court. But in the federal court, he can get rid of it. In federal court, he can pardon Donald Trump. So all of this talk about, it shouldn't be in state court, that's what the fuck this Krispy Kreme motherfucking happy eating bitch is about. I can't stand him because I was in prison for crimes I did not commit. And we were being raped and beat. And I wrote this motherfucker personally, him and the recently deceased Lieutenant Sheila Y. Oliver. And they didn't bother to write back. They let the officers beat us, stomp us, rape us, and they did nothing to help the women and the transgender women at Edna Mann Correctional Facility women at Clinton, New Jersey. You think he cares about you and your relatives? He did nothing. Governor Murphy, Phil Murphy inherited the problems. But Sheila Oliver, the lieutenant governor, she knew about it. She knew about it just as long as he knew about it, including the current commissioner. What's her name? I can't remember her name now. Coons, Victoria Coons. She knew about the rapes and the assault that's there too. And they promote from within. So why he thinks he's the president, he should be the president of the United States is beyond me, because he's just like Donald Trump. Why you all are letting him make his rounds and considering this motherfucker is beyond me. Anyway, listen to the lies he's about to spin, because either he's saying that Jack Smith is really not serious about prosecuting Donald Trump because he's not prosecuting the other 18. Because you can't have it both ways. Either he's prosecuting Trump and the trial is not really going to go anywhere, or Jack Smith is doing it wrong because he should not be prosecuting Trump without the other 18. All right, here it goes.
Candidate and former U.S. Attorney Christy, Governor Christy, thanks for joining us. You said today, earlier, that the Georgia charges against Donald Trump you feel are, quote, unnecessary. Because you feel as though Jack Smith, the special counsel, has already charged Trump for these exact actions in Georgia. Now, Georgia prosecutors might point out if Trump is elected president, he can just shut down Jack Smith's case or pardon himself, but he wouldn't have the right to do that with a Georgia investigation and or verdict. What's your response to that?
Well, Jake, I don't think that's a prosecutor's job. Prosecutor's job is to look at how you administer justice in this case. And let me say, first off, that I have no argument with the underlying conduct constituting something that should be seriously considered by any grand jury at the state or at the federal level.
So why are you saying it? Why are you here putting the idea in the minds of the American public?
But what happened here was Jack Smith charged the case. He charged the case weeks ago that consumes this conduct. Now, she could have brought this case without Donald Trump. And
do you hear that? She could not bring the case without Donald Trump. And I specifically wanted to stop it at this point, because the next video I'm going to play for you by Ari Melber specifically addresses what he said. And he is an attorney, and he was the attorney general. And this is how these corrupt ass attorney generals and attorneys and governors, that statement right there is how these corrupt ass bastards that y'all keep electing and putting in the government, this is how they keep getting in and making sure that the people that are in office are not held accountable.
Because Jack Smith didn't charge anybody else other than Donald Trump in this matter. And so I think the double charging here of Donald Trump is just something that complicates things in a way which makes the administration of justice much more difficult in the near term. And so I didn't think it was a necessary thing to do. Once you saw that Jack Smith was charging him federally for the very same conduct, we would have these kind of discussions amongst federal and state prosecutors when I was U.S. attorney, and we would work it out so that we didn't do these things. And I'm a little bit concerned that this had more to do with ego than anything else, that her office had...
Look at Jake Tapper's face. He ain't even buying the shit.
...put a lot of time into an investigation. Jack Smith came in a number of months ago, swooped in, moved quickly, charged the case, and that, at this point, you felt like, I put all this time in, I should charge the president because I put my time in. I don't think that's the way you make these calls. And so I think it was an unnecessary thing to do, because she has 18 other defendants who have not been charged anyplace else. That she...
Did y'all hear that? She got 18 other defendants that corroborated with Trump, but Jack Smith did not charge them. Why Jack Smith?
Could have charged without Trump and still had a very, very strong case down there.
So beyond that concern, independent of that, when you read this indictment, is this a solid case, do you think?
Get him, Jack.
The conduct is very disturbing, Jake. That's why I said that off the top. When you look at what he's alleged to have done here, along with others on his behalf, the pressure campaign that was put on these folks. Look,
So why would you
Donald
charge
Trump
it without him?
got due process in Georgia.
Mhm.
There was an original count, there was a machine recount, then there was a hand recount, all of which came up with essentially the same result. He had access to all the courts in Georgia to contest.
So that means everything he did after what this Krispy Kreme bastard just said, everything he did involved RICO charges. So why would Jack Smith not charge everybody else except for Donald Trump? It's something the matter with Jack Smith's case, according to him.
In the same way that Al Gore contested these matters in Florida state court back in 2000. The difference being that when Al Gore ultimately lost his case, he conceded and moved on. Donald Trump ratcheted the pressure up even more, ultimately resulting in what we saw on January 6th. And so, yeah, there's a lot of disturbing conduct here, not just by Donald Trump, but by a number of others named in the indictment.
What about the racketeering charges specifically?
So he literally just sat there and said, not just by Donald Trump.
Specifically, as a former U.S. attorney, I would think you've probably used RICO statutes, statewide and federal, and I'm wondering what you think about Fani Willis's application of them here.
Look, the RICO statute in Georgia is a very broad statute, even broader than the federal statute, Jake. I never used a RICO statute on a state level, but I did use it as U.S. attorney. Look, she's got a number of predicate acts here, which is what required. I think 161 predicate acts she cites. Now, people misunderstand. They think every one of those acts has to be a crime. What she's really establishing is that these were acts in furtherance of the conspiracy to commit that crime.
So why wouldn't she charge Donald Trump? Why hasn't Jack Smith charged the other people?
And, the fact here is that the RICO statute being as broad as it is in Georgia gives her the opportunity to do it this way. I don't know if I would have charged it that way, but now we're into the realm of just second guessing. Every prosecutor is going to make their own judgment.
Well, nobody's second guessing except for you, Krispy Kreme boy. Nobody's second guessing.
Multi-pronged plot. The case is strong. Defendant Donald Trump's fourth indictment, this one out of Georgia, where DA Willis busted a multi-pronged plot. The case is strong and sprawling. It runs 98 pages, months. So our special report right now does not summarize the whole indictment. Instead, we're honing in on the key allegedly criminal plots to overturn the Georgia results and the especially pernicious schemes by defendant Trump and selected aides, including Trump's tactic of trying to hide behind his lawyers. These are maneuvers that the DA now has indicted as criminal. For the first time, this case turns some infamous or controversial figures into indicted co-conspirators.
And that's why she charged Trump.
Former prosecutor Rudy Giuliani, now indicted on 13 counts, including lying, forgery, and trying to get public officials to break the law and steal the race. That's what the charges say. Here are receipts from Giuliani's lying claims in a Georgia legislative meeting.
Dominion and Smartmatic, the connection to Hugo Chavez, it's a highly inaccurate machine. What would that suggest? Phantom votes. There's overwhelming proof of fraud. I don't have to be a genius to figure out that those votes are not legitimate votes.
Now, Giuliani can lie about that in public, but lying to the authorities or the government is illegal, as that former prosecutor knows better than most. Now he faces his first charges, as does lawyer Sidney Powell. 7 counts for her repeated documented scheme to breach voting machines, trying to access data and software with plans to, and again, reading from the indictment, willfully tamper with electronic ballot markers and tabulating machines. Now, Powell hurt her case by writing this down in a contract with a data firm and then traveled for the purpose of willfully tampering with electronic ballot markers and tabulating machines. Now, these defendants deny any wrongdoing. The charges, though, the new indictment lays out many, many strands of these plots. And this is important here. The DA is arguing together. The evidence shows, and they can of course, test this. They have to prove it to a jury that it all went beyond legal services or hypotheticals.
Listen.
Powell busted for the plans first exposed by the Jan 6 committee, where she, Trump, and Giuliani plotted to appoint her as special counsel with a specific Georgia portfolio. That's the allegation. Here's some of the testimonial evidence.
What they were proposing, I thought was nuts. Flynn screamed at me that I was a quitter and everything, kept on standing up and turning around and screaming at me.
We landed where we started the meeting. Sidney Powell was fighting. Mike Flynn was fighting. They were looking for avenues that would result in President Trump remaining President Trump for a second term.
See?
Yeah.
See?
That's the halting sort of sing-song of someone trying to figure out, do I just say steal the election? Do I say a coup? I mean, it was finished. The race was over. The Electoral College had voted. President-elect Biden was holding transition meetings. The military had made it clear they weren't going to take any orders from a coup leader after January 20th.
And that is why she has to indict Donald Trump. He is an attorney general. He, Krispy Kreme, is an attorney. He knows this. Why go on CNN with Jake Tapper and spin a tale that says it's overkill? You don't need Donald Trump. Also highlighting the fact that Jack Smith needs to be indicting the other 18 people. Because Jack Smith is what? A U.S. Attorney General. And he needs the other 18 people. See, I already told you in my other video, I already know Donald Trump ain't going to do a day in jail on them federal charges. I was waiting for this case. And even if he don't do a day, I want to see him fingerprinted with the black ink, and I want to see his mugshot.
So that's what that was all about. And the January 6th committee, according to prosecutors and legal experts, has clearly advanced all of this because they gathered all that testimony. A lot of it was clearly true. A lot of it was fact-checked. A lot of it was corroborated. That's how investigations work. They also gave these individuals the chance to respond, which is only fair, to tell their side of the story. You can imagine, for example, being in a meeting and saying, I heard a bad idea. I was in the room. I didn't endorse the idea. I left the room. I wrote a memo to self, etc., etc. And you want to be fair when you conduct a thorough investigation. So here's what's new tonight. The January 6th committee gave lawyer Sidney Powell that opportunity. We have that footage. I'm reminding you, there she was testifying via Zoom. But again, here is the problem with lying to the government. Lawyers like Ms. Powell know it is a crime.
Mm-hmm.
These new charges say she did it anyway. They cite Powell's denial of any role in those voting machine breaches as more lies that were part of the criminal
Sworn
scheme.
Deposition.
Again, accountability coming out of Georgia for what these investigators say was happening in Washington. Those are some of Trump's indicted lawyers. Defendant Trump also took steps to not only hide behind them, as I mentioned, and to avoid evidence, but he also at times couldn't help himself, or he was so hell-bent on doing all this that he just got involved with fingerprints. He was a hands-on conspirator, according to the indictment, which has evidence.
And that is why he has to be indicted. And that is why Jack Smith has to indict the other 18 co-defendants. But he did not. Thank you for pointing it out, Krispy Kreme, Christy.
Of Trump placing calls demanding people join the illegal coup. Let me show you. Again, this is new from just what we got late last night. Calls to the Georgia Senate leader. Calls to Georgia's Republican governor, who today spoke out again against Trump's lies on this score. Calls to Georgia's Attorney General, the top law enforcement official. And calls and efforts to get other critical voting officials to somehow join his out-of-state coup operation. Now, in fairness to Donald Trump or any candidate scrutinizing their own results or loss, let's be clear. Those calls alone, absent everything else, would not legally be indictable. That is, I don't think a prosecutor or a fair-minded legal expert would say the calls alone are crimes.
Right. But he did more
and
than
this
call.
DA doesn't claim that. And this is important. We're going to hear more about this clash, I think, going into these cases, multiple defendants, and ultimately trials.
He did
what
more
this DA is
than
saying,
that.
and what legal experts and RICO experts will tell you, is those calls are now evidence amidst the wider plots. They become acts to advance the conspiracy precisely because there was a conspiracy, because there was these evidence of the wider plots involving several people. And again, the plot was not to chat with officials, double check the numbers. The plot was to illegally steal and overturn the results.
Right.
To take Trump's lie that he won and try to criminally enact it.
Right. Which he
That's
did.
why the other Trump aides are charged now for the first time.
Right.
Some of them are more associated, frankly, with propaganda than other types of physical criminality. Take Trump spokesperson and lawyer Jenna Ellis. After Trump lost, and again, he lost in those few days after the first vote, it was tabulated.
And he
Everybody
knew he
called it,
lost.
the AP, Fox News, everyone. Donald Trump lost, Biden won.
Right.
Biden's president-elect.
And he knew he lost.
Now, Ms. Ellis spent those first few weeks in November 2020 telling anyone who would listen a lie. She was out there lying and saying Donald Trump, quote, won in a landslide. Seemed desperate, even frankly bizarre at the time. Here is what this now indicted defendant claimed in our November 2020 interview.
Our strategy is to make sure that we continue to challenge all of these false and fraudulent results. The point of this, of course, is to get to fair and accurate results because the election was stolen and President Trump won by a landslide.
I just quoted you a whole range of sources, including the Wall Street Journal. So I just...
Let me finish.
Look,
I'm trying to answer.
I think we have to take... I understand, but
the reason that we went through the
you made a
lawsuit
mistake. Hold on. Take a pause, and I will let you...
election integrity issues.
I'll let you go again, but we have to take a pause. If you make false statements, you don't just run roughshod, okay?
She's saying it to him is not a big deal. Saying it on TV is not a big deal.
We also fact-checked her in real time, and we learned through that interview that she was part of this wider effort to publicly claim that Donald Trump won in a landslide, which is a false lie. No crime in saying that in public, posting it online, saying it in interviews, walking around the street and saying it, right? And that's not really in dispute. She's now charged in the Georgia indictment for the violation of the RICO Act and for soliciting the violation of the oath of a public officer along with these other lawyers.
Bang.
Meaning the public lies were advancing, laundering, you might say normalizing for MAGA people the idea that this was in bounds. It obviously was false, but that was what the public part was. And then the secret part, which she's charged for, is not the public part, although that may be technically furthering the conspiracy. But the underlying key thing is they say they have evidence that she and others were trying to lie to the government and submit fraudulent documents and have people pretend to be public officials. You have freedom of fashion in America, right? You can wear anything. You can wear something that criticizes the government or has political views. But that doesn't mean you can dress up as a police officer and try to kidnap people, right?
So now you tell me why you got Krispy Kreme, Christy, pointing out that the state prosecutor has prosecuted the other people for doing this, but the federal prosecutor has not prosecuted the other people for doing this. I can't dress up like a police officer. You can't dress up like a police. See, this is why I love watching Ari Melber, because he sets it up and he explains it and he breaks it down. What's going on, Jack Smith? See, I already know he was going to let Donald Trump walk. I said that in my other videos. You got to be blind if you can't see that Donald Trump ain't going to prison for anything, because he already done blackmailed everybody in that federal trial. But you can't blackmail these people, at least not yet. You ain't got to them. And like I said, last year, all I was doing was waiting for November to come to see if somebody was going to get elected in Georgia that was going to pull her off this case. Because I already knew Merrick Garland wasn't going to do shit. Y'all ain't out there voting and putting in the right people. He wasn't going to touch no prosecution against Donald Trump. She got everything she needs to prosecute these people, or she would not bring the charges. That's why they out there threatening to kill her and her staff.
That makes sense. You can't dress up as a public official or an elector either. So that's what she's indicted for. Another part of the case is different than Jack Smith's case and the other probes. You've heard follow the money. Here, the DA followed the lies as late as they went, which is way past President Biden being sworn in. If you remember Inauguration Day.
I'm sorry, because I hate when people do this in videos, but I'm just pointing out certain things because it's a lot to take in. Remember how he said follow the money? In my other video, I said when Ari Melber said that there were judges at Trump's arraignment. Remember the last arraignment? He said there were several judges at that arraignment. And I said, now, even Stevie Wonder could see that. Why are there several judges at that arraignment? That's where you make your deals. Follow the money, follow the judges.
Take it all the way back. I mentioned Biden's November win was the obvious end of the race for most people. The January 6th insurrection ended some of that last-ditch talk from election challenges and deniers from Republicans who saw how bad things got. Let's look at, I want to show Biden again. And the reason I want you to see this is January 20th. In the real world, everyone saw the lawful transfer of power. That was the president-elect becoming the president. All rational people around the world understood what was happening. Here's what's new tonight. Defendant Trump pressing on. 8 months after you see President-elect turn President Biden, indictment tracks Trump still in writing, pushing for a top official to commit fraud to try to steal the election. A written demand to, quote, decertify the election and announce the true winner as Donald Trump.
Look at this. Look at
Now,
this.
I've used some legal terms, try to keep it clear, but we've used some statutory references. What I'm going to tell you about that being the final chronological chapter in this indictment, that Donald Trump as the defendant was pushing that 8 months after inauguration, we have a word for that. It is absolutely bananas.
Crazy time.
But the fact that it's bananas, let's bring it back up. Let that sink in.
Krispy Kreme bananas time.
It's bananas. It is that simple. But
and you have an attorney general from the state of New Jersey, Krispy Kreme, Christy, running for the presidency of the United States, along with Byron, I can't even think of his last name, and Tim Scott, running around here still supporting Donald Trump as president of the United States. Bananas, crazy time. Why are they still supporting Donald Trump as the but they want to be president of the United States, right along with Ron DeSantis. All right.
let me be clear why you have this bunch of bananas on your screen tonight. To think that it's so bananas that it shouldn't be dealt with is to fall into the trap. This DA, who is clearly strong and tough and broad in her view of how she enforces the law, is not giving Donald Trump a pass because, oh, of course, he's lying and
right
he
along
says
with Jack
weird things
Smith
and wild things, or he's just joking or trolling, or he's allowed to be bananas. She said
it is bananas that Jack Smith does not have the co-conspirators charged in the federal crime. He ain't even charging Donald Trump with all the charges that he should have charged him.
if you come into her state and break the law, it doesn't matter how bananas it is, she will use the laws to the fullest extent.
I told you everybody got their number. I got my number. You got your number. Everybody got their number. Jack Smith got his number. If that ain't proof positive right there that the man got his number, he ain't charged nobody but Donald Trump. Everybody else breathing a goddamn sigh. And that's who those judges were sitting in that courtroom. Oh, the judge is tough. The judge is this, trying to make it seem like the judge on the trial. Oh, she's fair. She's tough. She's this, she's that. She's paid. That's why every judge in all the federal cases, he ain't had to take a fingerprint. He ain't had to take a mugshot. And if I don't see a mugshot in this Georgia case and some black fingerprints, I know that she had her number too. That's how it goes. Either you get treated like everybody else, because like the sheriff said, unless somebody intervenes, he's going to get Donald Trump and boop, boop. Unless somebody intervenes. So no mugshot, somebody got to them people down in Georgia. And already you got Krispy Kreme making the rounds, trying to put the bug in the ear that is, it's overkill. Already he doing his job because we already know he on the clock. He already doing his job. He already getting paid. See, Donald Trump buys his way out of everything. Why? Because there's 100 million immigrants in this motherfucking country, and it's about to be a war. I don't think y'all believe me. It's 100 motherfuckers in this country. Donald Trump ain't the right one to get rid of them. He love immigrants coming into this country because he ain't got to pay them nothing. He ain't don't worry about no taxes and nothing else. He could pay them $2 an hour. They work all in his goddamn motherfucker just went and erased the video for him. He just erased the video of when he had the documents. He paying that man $2 an hour. He ain't paying them nothing. He ain't got to worry about no taxes or nothing. That's all he got. So he gonna keep letting them people come into the country. You're the one about to lose your ranches and lose your houses. And y'all steady out there supporting the motherfuckers. All right, I gotta go. I just wanted to show y'all. This is what happens when we don't stick together because we worrying about who is gay, who's wearing a dress, who got a BMW, who got a Porsche, who married to who got a baby by who got YSL. But that's the important stuff. In a minute, ain't none of y'all gonna have that. In a minute, ain't none of y'all gonna have that. Y'all all gonna be sleeping right on the motherfucking street. Right with the people who used to have it last year. There's nothing but immigrants in this country. And then y'all want to feel embarrassed. Y'all going to lose your mind. Y'all going to lose your cool. Y'all going to go get all these guns that y'all got stowed away. And y'all going to start shooting. Because you're going to be angry. And it ain't nobody to be angry at and angry with but yourself. Because we should not be voting for anybody who does not want to pay us with our tax dollars exempt. I'm voting for Biden. Biden over there starting wars and giving people reparations. He's paying people reparations right now, but not us. Bye. Have a nice day.